Welcome back to The Explainer. If you're the kind of person who loves peeling back the layers to see how our incredibly complex world actually works, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're skipping the usual agenda. Actually, scratch that. We're just jumping straight into a real-world geographical mystery. We're talking about the physical backbone of the internet. It's this massive, totally hidden infrastructure running right along the ocean floor. And more importantly, we're going to look at how that exact infrastructure became the ultimate tool for global surveillance. It's a fascinating, almost unbelievable story, so let's map it out. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. A completely ordinary, totally forgettable house in a quiet suburban New Jersey neighborhood. Pretty standard, right? But look a little closer. It's surrounded by a seriously heavy-duty security gate. And for a supposedly normal family home, it's got dozens of industrial-sized air conditioning units just lined up outside. I mean, it doesn't really look like a place where someone lives. It looks way more like a heavily fortified warehouse. So what in the world is actually going on inside this building?
Well, that unassuming house is literally nothing but a facade. It's a disguise for a massive facility known in leaked intelligence documents as Pinecone. The building is actually a secure landing station for AT&T. It's the exact geographic choke point where massive undersea cables, the literal physical wires connecting the whole world's communications, hit the eastern seaboard of the United States. And according to leaked maps, this secretive building isn't just routing your internet traffic or connecting phone calls. No, it's secretly used by the US government to process and analyze intercepted data flowing right through those very cables. Crazy, right? To really understand how vital a facility like Pinecone is, we kind of have to grasp the sheer physical scale of the internet. 1.4 million. That is the number of kilometers of physical cable currently draped across the ocean floor. We're talking about a massive, sprawling network of hundreds of cables just sitting down there in the dark at the bottom of the ocean, quietly linking up entire continents, economies, and citizens.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the volume of information traveling through these deep-sea tubes. It's absolutely staggering. The absolute fastest of these underwater cables can transfer 224 terabytes of data every single second. Think about that for a second. That is literally all of our communication, our financial transactions, our private connections, our late-night browsing habits, moving at lightning speed. It seems totally unfathomable that any government agency could possibly have the capability to spy on a pipeline that massive. Honestly, it would seem impossible, except we have solid proof that they do.
Section 2. A history of cable tapping, from telegraphs to submarines.
So before we get completely lost in the modern surveillance state, we need to realize that leveraging communication cables for geopolitical advantage is actually a super old, highly tested military strategy. Way back in 1858, the very first transatlantic copper cable was laid, and it took 18 hours just to send a single telegram. But fast forward to 1914 during World War I, and you've got the British Navy actually splicing into a German submarine cable. British codebreakers intercepted the famous Zimmermann telegram through this, which uncovered a secret plan for Mexico to invade the United States. Then jump to the 1970s. The Cold War is raging, right? The U.S. builds an entire spy submarine called the USS Halibut, complete with a secret computer room they literally, no joke, called the Batcave. Divers used these pressurized gas chambers to descend 400 feet into the freezing ocean, and they secretly attached a giant 20-foot recording device to Soviet communication cables. That was Operation Ivy Bells. And finally, jumping to the year 2001. Following the 9/11 attacks, the Patriot Act is signed, ushering in this aggressive new era of domestic and international surveillance that brings us directly to today.
Section 3. The Snowden surveillance leaks.
The year 2013 was an absolute watershed moment in the history of the internet. You probably remember this. An NSA contractor named Edward Snowden leaked a massive cache of highly classified documents to the press. And these leaks definitively proved that the US National Security Agency wasn't just, tapping one or two specific cables of interest. No way. They were targeting virtually every single submarine cable that touched American soil. Just listen to this shocking internal mantra from those leaked documents. Collect it all, exploit it all, partner it all, master the internet. I mean, wow, it brilliantly illustrates the sheer, unchecked ambition of the agency's surveillance goals. And the thing is, they didn't do it alone. To collect it all, they obviously required the cooperation of telecommunication companies and major tech giants. They partnered with massive corporations like Apple, Google, Yahoo, and Microsoft to siphon off an unprecedented amount of global internet traffic.
But there was a legal problem here. U.S. law strictly limits the NSA from conducting mass surveillance on American citizens without a warrant.
However, those laws don't apply to foreign intelligence agencies. So the really crucial point here is that the NSA utilized a massive legal loophole. They turned to their British counterparts, the GCHQ. The leaked documents actually reveal that the NSA paid the British agency £100 million in secret funding to bypass American laws. This allowed the British to collect the data on Americans, and then they could simply share that gold mine of intelligence right back with the United States.
And the scale of what they managed to collect through these combined efforts, it is just breathtaking. 194 million. That's the number of text messages collected by this operation every single day at its peak. Think of the scale. Hundreds of thousands of names, tens of thousands of geographic coordinates, all just quietly scraped from the bottom of the ocean and from telecom servers, daily.
Section 4. Processing the world's data.
Let's move to the next part and see how this all builds, because this naturally leads us to a massive logistical question. If an intelligence agency is vacuuming up 600 million phone events and 194 million text messages a day, how on earth could any human being possibly make sense of that? Like, how does a literal sea of random zeros and ones become actual usable intelligence? Well, here is how they actually process that noise. They break down their playbook into 3 really clear steps. Step 1 is collect, physically tapping the undersea cables or working with telecom providers to siphon that raw data. Step 2 is process, funneling that raw, chaotic data into specialized filtering facilities, like that fake house in New Jersey we talked about, Pinecone, to basically sift out the noise and find connections. And finally, step 3 is search. All that filtered metadata is pushed into a highly classified, easily searchable database known as XKeyscore.
XKeyscore is a terrifyingly powerful tool. It functions essentially like a private Google search engine, but for global surveillance. It takes all that collected metadata and links individual targets to their physical locations, their private emails, and their entire social network. Let me put that into perspective. An intelligence operator could simply type in a query looking for, say, an Arabic font Google search originating from the tribal areas of Pakistan. And instantly, the system cross-references the tapped undersea cables to pinpoint that user's identity, their messages, and their current geographic location. It effectively turns global internet metadata into a weapon of modern warfare. It's a real game changer.
Section 5. The geopolitics of cables. So what happens when the entire world finds out the United States has basically tapped the physical internet? Well, as you can imagine, these revelations sparked a massive, ongoing geopolitical fallout. Suddenly, every great power realized that whoever controls the physical cables at the bottom of the ocean controls the global flow of information. So now we are seeing a total scramble for dominance. First off, countries are purposely building cables that completely bypass the United States, just to avoid NSA tapping. Meanwhile, China is rapidly expanding its own worldwide network of cables using state-owned companies like Huawei, and they're openly embracing mass surveillance as a feature of their infrastructure. In response to all this, the US government created a special unit called Team Telecom. Their job? They actively block competitor lines. For instance, they blocked a recently planned Google and Facebook cable that was supposed to connect Los Angeles to Hong Kong. It was deemed simply too risky. And it's not just the US and China either. Russia has deployed specialized surface ships like the Yantar, which just linger suspiciously over vital submarine cables near Ireland and Syria. It has gotten so incredibly tense that private telecom companies are now deploying autonomous submarine drones to patrol the ocean floor, basically just to babysit and guard their billion-dollar cables from sabotage.
And this perfectly illustrates the ultimate consequence of all this spying and paranoia. We are looking at a bifurcated internet. We're moving far away from a single hyper-connected global map. Because of all this mutual distrust, the physical internet is literally splitting into duplicate competing networks. There are the American lines and there are the Chinese lines, purposely built not to cross or rely on one another whatsoever. We are basically seeing a world divided by wires, where nations have to make a hard choice about which superpower they trust to route their data.
Which leaves us with a really vital question. As great powers continue to build their own separate, highly monitored internets, who will control the cables of tomorrow? Because in a world where every single text, search, and phone call has to travel across a physical wire sitting down there on the ocean floor, your personal privacy ultimately depends on who owns the submarine that finds it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious, keep learning, and I will see you next time.